friends. So I said I was going to take a little break, and I'm glad that I did. I took a long walk recently, and originally my first post of this upcoming year was going to be all about what do I plan to do and share, and how am I going to anticipate building community through growth and sharing experiences of what I'm doing and how I want to engage with you, beyond just these little videos. I took a moment and I just thought to myself, maybe starting off 2021 would be better served with actually a point of reflection and gratitude for 2020, which I know is absurd in some ways to even say out loud. Like, what 2020 was a dumpster fire, and what is there to actually be grateful for? But it's been recommending new channels and other people who are adjacent to where I am in the YouTube community. And I came across this one channel where they were live streaming their New Year's, and they had looked up this 20 questions for 2020, and I thought that what a wonderful idea to potentially share. And I'm going to list them down below, the actual questions, and they're relatively simple. A lot of them elicit just like a one-word response or one-word sort of reflection point for where you are. And yeah, so let's get started. Describe 2020 in one word. Chaotic. I think chaotic is the word that I'm going to use for it. It was a twisty-turny year for a lot of different things, and you never know what the next day was going to bring, which the 3 years prior sort of ramped up for it. But as exhausting as that was, I don't think anyone was really prepared for the drastic fundamental change that was constantly occurring. What is one thing I would have done differently in 2020? I am not quite sure. I typically used to, and I think still instinctually, live with this concept of think before you speak, think before you do, because I don't like having regrets. I don't like apologizing for something that I know is uncharacteristic to myself. What would I would have done differently? I don't think I would have done anything differently. I'd be curious, what would you guys have done differently in 2020? Without the foresight of what was coming in the year, what would you maybe have done differently overall? Single best thing that happened to you in 2020? I will say that there's been a lot of decent things that have peppered 2020. I will say that the one best thing, I will say creatively thinking about how to extend myself outside of being stuck. And that can mean a lot of things to unpack at a later date. But just as a prime example on creatively getting out, I will point to building my YouTube channel, at least developing where I'm going with it, which is still undefined for a lot of ways. Single most challenging thing. The single most challenging thing. 1, 2, 3. I still can't think of one thing. One challenging thing. Relying on package delivery. That has been a challenge, especially when everything is a little bit further of a drive, depending on reliable delivery and delayed delivery, and that has been a challenge. One new thing you tried in 2020 that you are glad that you did. I will say that something in my garden space. One new thing is exploring technology. So computers are a little bit outside of my wheelhouse just in general, but one new thing is probably growing to learn about different things with technology, which makes me probably sound way old, but things with different microphones, which hopefully this is working, and lighting, which I'm still struggling with, and camera focus and angles and depths, and even just editing in general, which is still a work in progress, but I will say that it's definitely getting better. And so one new thing that you've tried, I'm glad that I've tried multimedia creative technology. That sounds like a very haphazard way to put it. Favorite place that you have visited in 2020? So this has been limited for me. However, I went hiking off a trail a few months ago, and we peaked this summit, and almost towards the peak was this old, overgrown property that nobody lives at anymore, and it was sort of like a snapshot into time, and I couldn't even look up where this was. Like, there's this place across the border in New Hampshire, and it's known for being like this old mansion that was just let to fall to time, and there's not actually a whole lot really remaining to the area. But this place on the top of the mountain, where it probably gets the brunt of, you know, more extreme weather and cold, and yeah, it was amazing to see sort of the snapshot into time. It looked like this place had been abandoned, and then it's been temporarily used as maybe a hunting retreat here and there, and nobody's been there in quite some time. And it's like hidden on the top of the mountain, which also makes me think, who brought up all of these materials to build this structure, you know, an hour's hike up a mountainside? I always like finding those little pockets of hidden treasures. Favorite place you have eaten at? I cannot think of a place I have eaten out at in 2020 at all. Favorite memory of 2020? This one is hard. I will say I had a and this isn't even this is a great answer for me, and that's what I'm going to share. So there's a very clear day for me that happened probably towards the middle to late March of 2020, when everything was shutting down and people were adjusting to something that is relatively complacent normalcy for me in my struggles with mental health, where I don't frequently leave as freely and as often as I want to. And it's just sort of taking that energy in through social media. What I think my growth discovery through that process was, it was like this day that was just so clear in the fact of, I was glad for whom I picked life with in some regards, like somebody who I laugh with and can trust, and somebody that you would just, I don't know, it was just like a day of appreciation that came out of nowhere. It came out of actually a place of just a lot of bad energy, and I was able to like spin that around, and just to think how it was a very nice day of internal gratitude. The time that you laugh the hardest, as far as an actual belly laugh, I can't remember a time that I belly laughed with clarity. I try to also, I tend to be sarcastic in a lot of the way I think about things, and put a lot of satire in things, so I'm constantly humored and tickled by a lot of things throughout the day. Even when I'm having a low energy, struggle bus oriented day, I will say there is always a point myself within a day that I find something that humors me. And so I don't think any of that has really changed. Most unexpected joy. So this one goes back to my garden, and this is gonna also be a little silly. I have been trying to grow this one version of summer squash, this Bennington scallop squash, for years. And this was the year I was first able to grow it successfully. It came fruit to harvest. It was very bountiful, and it brought me a lot of joy and pride into being able to, one, grow it, but then explore new recipes from that and then share that at home. What was your most unexpected obstacle? This one is a little windy-turny. So I will say my most unexpected obstacle actually came from think tanking and actually putting a foot forward on something. And to give a specific example of this is putting together a book and then defining how I was putting it out into the world, like where and how that was going to be. And this was a learning curve that had a lot of obstacles, a lot of research, a lot of homework, lots of emails, lots of unanswered emails to places that provided a lot of obstacles. But for as many hurdles as there were, it eventually got to where it was going. And there are less obstacles once I got it to a certain point in development. And so single most thing of obstacles is really, maybe that's a long way around saying that I was my own obstacle. It's the, what information do I need to feel like I can safely move forward on something without creating more chaos in a world where, in a year where I would define chaos or chaotic as the word of the year. Most vivid memory. This one's a little bittersweet. So there was a point in the summer where I remember I was having a day where I needed to take some time off of what I was doing and how I was thinking, and I had the dog. I went down to the river and the dogs were running up and down, and our dog Rupert went running all the way down to this like little swimming hole area on the river that we normally, there's like this big rock, so we like lay out on it and let the water cascade over us on it. And it's deep enough where our previous dog Toby used to be able to swim, and he just loved it, and he chased bubbles, and he loved his life in this little section of the river. And Rupert, there's something about Rupert that is Toby in a lot of ways, and some of that is the hound personality, and some of it is eerily similar to his mannerisms just as a dog, like who his personality is as a dog, that he would not know otherwise, that sort of feeds into this concept of like reincarnation and how energy is transferred, and how sometimes, your familiars come to you in a way that you need them to. To make a long story short, he ran down to this like little area, and he is not a dog that readily gets in the water and swims, but he just went full force and was howling, and he was chasing both frogs and bubbles in the river, and it was the nostalgia and the fondness of the memories of us as a family with our prior generation of dogs. And it was like one of those memories where it was running in real time as it was also running concurrent to recalling a past memory, and in like a weird nostalgic deja vu kind of way. and I think that's one of my most vivid memories for this past year. What are you most grateful for this year? I will say that I am most grateful for stepping into arenas that are mildly uncomfortable but offer me the shield of protection while also being armed with vulnerability, if that makes any sense. I feel like I've done a lot of exploration and growth through like a virtual community, as well as just doing a lot of work for myself and making sure that a lot of structures and systems are in place for just a more communicative and loving home. And I know that potentially sounds weird, but I mean it in like a healthy kind of way of when you're feeling so stuck for so long, you feel like everything is going to stay the same forever. And I think this was a year where some of that was proved to be able to change. Favorite song of 2020. So this one is a quick thing. I think I've already played it today. March by the Chicks. I think we're coming up on a year since it's been released, or maybe less than, but there's something still about the cadence section where the names roll, and I've watched the video just a handful of times in the aspect of knowing the visual behind it, but the vamping cadence section where the violin's building, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it right now, because it's a song that probably defines my 2020. What gave you purpose in 2020? Actually, feeling like I can show up for people finally, and specifically in an area that I do feel like stable and confident about, is my background in studying public health and immunology concepts, and being able to share that in a virtual community, but also reaching out and writing to my in-laws and feeling like I can finally offer some sort of safety and information in a lot of ways where I feel like I'm constantly taking emotional energy from them in a sense of like worry. But yeah, this year felt like I was able to give back in a lot of ways. And yeah, that's what purpose I found this year. Single most time waster. Social media, because I'm still learning about what and how to use it in the right capacity for what I'm achieving for my personal interest and goals. And with that, researching a new topic that's unfamiliar to me, it has sucked a lot of time. Best thing with time, new recipes. I love cooking for not only for my own creative outlets, but I like finding new ways to cook for Caleb and bring him something to look forward to. He works a lot, so to feel like that's one of those things I can take off his plate of providing a warm meal that is something to look forward to on a regular, consistent basis, that timing dinner for when he gets home is something that throughout a relationship I've always aimed for, but it's also one of the things that I love to do with my time. And it helps me to schedule, so it's something that I really look forward to. Hey, pup. All right, 18. Biggest thing that you have learned this year. I have learned through, and I got this through a couple of my books, is that my instinctual reactions should not be discounted. And I've always chalked up in the last couple of years of my instincts need to be ignored because they're a byproduct of anxiety. And I have learned that my instincts tend to be true and authentic, and that when I'm ignoring them and trying to stuff them down, I am, one, not being authentic, but two, outside people sort of pick up that information differently, and then they analyze it differently, and then I'm getting further away from that emotional connectedness that is what forged the bond in the first place. One word to describe your intentions for 2021. One word: consistency. What are you looking forward to in 2021? I have a lot, and I jumped on that answer very quickly, but I'm going to unpack that a little bit in my next video, and the pups have to go outside, I think, but I have a lot that I am looking forward to for 2021 in what I am sharing, what I am planning, what I am hoping to build and grow together here at home with Caleb, and how to share that forward with you guys. And yeah, so I have to go, but remember to grow from where you are, and I will share more with you soon. All right, tschüss.